What is up, everybody? It's your boy Chad Summer here on Rock Bottoms Up Podcast. I've been an addict for over 30 plus years, and I just hit my 1 year of being clean and sober. I've been in countless addiction recovery meetings, and I know what the power of what someone's story can do. And today we have with us Kyla Temple. Hey, Kyla Temple.
Hey,
We are so excited to have you. We are so excited to have you here, Kyla. It's Kyla has hit her 8 months of sobriety, and we can't wait to listen to her and hear how she did it. At first, Kyla, let's go ahead and introduce you. Why don't you go ahead and just share with us a little bit about yourself?
sure. Thanks for having me on the show, Chad. I'm excited to share with all of you my sober journey, as well as mental health and addiction journey as a mental health professional. So, a little bit about me. I was born in Brainerd, Minnesota, and I moved to a small town in southeastern North Dakota before I was actually 1 year old. And I grew up in that same town my whole childhood. Some other things my mom and my brother and I moved there before I was one. And shortly after, my mom met my dad and was adopted. My biological dad wasn't in the picture. And that'll kind of forefront later in my story. I had an older brother, and then along came my younger sister. And I would say growing up, I had relatively normal, if you want to call it a normal childhood, very stable, loving family. We actually, so to speak, never had alcohol, anything like that in the house. Like I would say, very, quote, normal. So grew up in this small town in southeastern North Dakota. After I graduated from high school, I went to college in Bismarck, North Dakota at the University of Mary, where I graduated with my degree in social sciences to become a social worker. I graduated senior student social worker of the class, had a 4.0, did very well in college. And from there, I jumped right into my master's degree. I actually decided to move out to Cleveland, Ohio, and attend one of the top 10 schools in the nation for the master's program in social work. I was at this point in my life where I was like, you know what? I am just going to spread my wings and fly and literally fly out to Cleveland, Ohio, where I knew nobody and get my master's degree, and which I did in 11 months. After that, I decided Ohio was not the job for me, not the state for me. So I ventured back to North Dakota as a master's social worker, and I practiced for 12 years. In 2016, I married my now husband, Zach, and I moved to an even smaller town in North Dakota, about an hour away from my hometown. A couple of years later, about 5 years ago, we adopted our son from foster care when he was 13. So he's now 18. So we jumped right into that parenting of the teenage stage, which we had just decided was something that was meant for us, and it's been great. I can't forget to mention my dog, Pongo. We've had her for 3 years, and she's been the best thing in such a strong pivotal of my recovery. Dog lover here. Can't say enough about how great she is. She's my little princess. Other than that, I'm happy to be on the show and, like I said, kind of share with you some of where I was, my journey, how being a mental health professional affected my addiction and recovery, and where I'm at today and future forward looking.
Yeah, awesome. That is so cool. Kyla, thank you so much for allowing us to just come along and kind of get to know you because it's so important to know somebody's background and what growing up looked like and like you said, pretty normal childhood. However, I mean you shown how educated you were. Amazing 4.0 student went on to get your master's degree. Congratulations. That is so awesome, my friend. I know it's not easy, going into, those master's degrees as a mother, so demanding that schooling is. So congratulations on those accolades. That's really awesome, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kyla, let's go ahead and let's talk about your venture. Obviously, you gave us a great preview of your life. Now, as you're going throughout your life, how did addiction sneak into your life? How did your journey into addiction begin?
Sure. So I like the way you frame that kind of sneak into your life because I really feel like that's what it did. Reflecting on this question as I was preparing to chat with you and kind of looking back on, my high school years to where I am now in recovery, a lot of things pinpoint or stick out in my mind that I really didn't see at the time. And now in recovery, I look back and think, oh, that's what I was doing. That's where my insanity of my brain was at. So as far as alcohol, which is my only drug of choice, I would say I started kind of dabbling with it in high school, not a whole lot. Pretty strict upbringing, so I had to get kind of creative if I was going to use alcohol at all. Um, Moving on to college, I would say that definitely broadened my drinking career, as you would call it, or as I call it. Um,
Yeah.
I felt like it was, yeah, my career of drinking. So I feel like it was fairly typical, at least here of Midwest colleges, universities. Alcohol is kind of a forefront of any social situation, any downtime from school, etc. But I really kept it to mostly the weekends. So during the week it was pretty chill. Weekends would come around. Um, there's always got to be a party somewhere that you're going to. I'm a very social person, so being out and about still is kind of my jam and how I thrive on that. But one thing I noticed, and I didn't at the time so much, was that every weekend was a bender. You're not just going out and having touristry, socializing with friends. You're either not having anything at all, or you're going all the way. And that was me taking it all the way. I will say that when I went to graduate school in Ohio, I did kind of put drinking on pause. I'm not really sure why, if I was just smart enough to realize that, hey, I'm in a city where I know nobody. So being aware of my surroundings and things like that. And then also, I mean, 11 months of school, it was really, really hard. Had I been drinking, then there's no way I could have done it. So thankfully, I put a pause on that. Um, and it wasn't to the point of where it got to be later. I think after I came back, it started to slowly creep up again in my life. And about 7 years ago, I did have weight loss surgery. And not to blame that on anything, but if you're familiar with that, there's a lot of evidence on cross addiction. And now, as I'm saying not to blame that on anything, I do think I had that addict brain beforehand, but the alcoholism definitely plays into factor with that. So they do a very good job, I will say, of educating you. Do not drink after the surgery. It can become very problematic, but my addict brain did not listen. So as the time went by post surgery, I found that, it's actually kind of fun because you can go from drunk, sober, drunk, sober, drunk, sober, or at least that feeling all within one night. You can get your highs, your lows, your highs, your lows. And then as it progressed farther as my drinking, I found that, man, I could go from 0 to 60. Like, I could have 7 or 8 drinks and feel like fine, calm, cool, collected, no adverse side effects. And then that next drink would just put me over the edge, like entirely different person. And it almost got to the point where, it was really scary because you would think, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I can do thing. I can be out with my friends. I'm not going to be a total obnoxious person. Make any poor life choices, and then that next drink comes and you're gone. So starting to notice those sort of patterns, and just how like chaotic it would be, the frequent blackouts, like I said, poor life choices, and just slowly going from what I called a functioning alcoholic to not being able to function as an alcoholic. I think it was a very fine line in the sand that I crossed fairly quickly within a couple of years. And one thing that I kind of looking back on too was I really justified my behavior, that excessive drinking, things like that. I always thought, well, if I can do X, Y, and Z good, if I can be a good wife, a good mom, I have a master's degree, I have a good job. So what if I drink a little bit too much? All these good things that I'm doing in my life make up for that. And so that's okay. And in my mind now, being sober, that's the brain of an addict and just the insanity cycling and cycling. Until it got to the point, I guess, where I figured out, I was always chasing the next best thing, my next dream, my next career benchmark, my next, I guess, high, as you could speak, in life. And I got to the point where I just couldn't chase my dreams anymore because my alcohol had become too much of a priority in my life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As you're sharing your story, it's like it's crazy how, as an addict, we can start to relating to things. How you were talking about your weekends, and it wasn't, hey, we'll come out here, we'll have a few drinks. It was always like 0 to 60. And as an addict, that was literally the story of my life, because I started my addiction, when I was 13. So, it was hard to be an addict, Monday through Friday, because, there was always school. And so, but that weekend it was like, it was no holds bar. But then, you transitioned into that stomach surgery. I too had the gastric sleeve done. And as an addict for being 25 plus years as an addict there, got that stomach surgery, and it completely flipped the script. It opened up a door to a new high that I had never experienced before, because I could have 6 shots of vodka, get that buzz on, feel that warmth and that drunk, that high, so to speak. And then 15 minutes later, all of a sudden, I'm fine. I'm sober. And it was a weird hamster wheel that I was running on there. Opened up a whole nother level of getting drunk. So yeah, no, anybody out there, I mean, me and Kyla will both attest to you. Please do not bring your drinking habits into that lifestyle. It is so dangerous. Obviously, your healthcare provider should be very aware of your addictions, your alcohol drinking before you get the surgery. Because as both me and Kyla can attest, extremely dangerous. It can become extremely dangerous. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Kyla. So, like later, as your ventures in alcohol began to get more progressive. Like, share some moments or some experiences that kind of led you to that rock bottom, and began that turning point towards recovery.
Sure. So when I look at what I would call my rock bottom, I don't know that sometimes I think, well, was that really my rock bottom? I guess I didn't have one focal turning point in my life, like a really bad near-death experience, a DUI, a total intervention of people saying you don't quit, you're cut out of our lives, etc. I think it was just a slow progression of me finally realizing really the insanity I was putting myself into. About a year ago, I was practicing social work in my 12th year and ended up losing my job. And interestingly enough, I worked in the realm of health insurance, and specifically with mental health and substance use, and people who were possibly seeking treatment, had different various needs, maybe some gaps in care. So I knew all the boxes to check. This is where I was almost maybe too smart for my own good. and talking about being a mental health professional dealing with the addiction. You know all the boxes to check that could potentially land you into an inpatient treatment detox. And you're maybe starting to check those boxes, and there's more and more boxes coming along, but you come up with every single reason to deny it. Well, at least I wasn't as bad as Chad on paper. I met, well, I don't do that, or yeah, right, that person probably lied about that. They take it too far, I know it. So all those silly self thoughts that you're telling yourself when really, no, you are that person on paper, you're just lying to yourself. So I came up with that realization again that, I can barely function. How am I going to chase my dreams? How am I going to become a successful person? A lot of my, I guess, inner struggles are who I am perceived to be on the outside. Again, if I look like I have it all together, I have it all together. And that point in my life was breaking down so much that I couldn't even fake it that I had it together. It was quite evident that I didn't. So just a lot of reflecting on who I was at that point in my life, who I used to be, and where I want to be. Kind of realized, I am reaching that rock bottom. And before I go all the way down to the bottom, what do I need to do?
Mm.
So I've had a few close friends, family members mention over the years, like, hey, do you think you're drinking too much? Saw you the other night. Seemed a little bit excessive. Is everything okay? But I just brush it off, minimize, deny. And I think coming forth later, the people who confronted me on that, a lot, very good intentions, but I just wasn't ready to hear it. I was in that denial mode. I was putting my guard up, trying to act like that person on the outside who has it all together, when really it was cry out for help, but I couldn't accept the help.
Yeah.
So August of last year, I don't know what really clicked. One day, of course, I'd been drinking because that was a normal daily routine. I ended up just saying, you know what, God, I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this. The hangovers, the withdrawals. I had 3 emergency room visits in 2 years, all stemming from the alcohol use. And again, just living in that denial. And I had my aha moment of, you know what? I can't live like this. And I just really can't do it on my own. I've got all the tools and resources at my fingertips. I helped people get into treatment. I taught people coping skills. I helped them build their toolbox, but I could never do it for me. And so getting to that realization, I called the treatment center that I ended up going to, Hazelwood Betty Ford in Center City, Minnesota. Called them one evening, did the phone screen intake, and the next day they called me and said, yeah, we can get you in tomorrow or the next day, which was really a godsend because in my mind, I thought they were going to say like, oh, we'll have a bed open in 2 or 3 weeks. We'll call you. And then that would have been my out. I would have been like, okay, I can, you know, lay low. I could do this myself. And then when they call back, I'd be like, oh, just kidding, or not even answer the call. Thankfully for my recovery, they were like, yep, Thursday or Friday, drive over. It's about a $5 drive from where I live. So when I decided that I was going to go to Hazelden Betty Ford, I was kind of at a point where I just decided, you know what, I can't do this on my own. And I need that extra layer of support to help me get past this first hump kind of in my journey. So I was able to learn a lot of things while I was at Hazelden Betty Ford. I went to medical detox for 3 days and then spent 29 or 30 days in residential treatment, where I was able to learn a lot about myself and some of my patterns of addiction that I was experiencing that I maybe wasn't even aware of that I was experiencing at the time. Such as thriving on chaos. I had such a busy lifestyle. I was always go, 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 taking on another job, another volunteer project, kind of just having that chaotic, busy life, which also led to a pattern of the ultimate self-sabotaging. I would get so chaotic and so busy and a lot of times doing really, really well. but then I would always have to find a way to mess things up because I needed more chaos. So the self-sabotaging, whether it was a relationship that was going well, any personal things, a job, I had to find a way to mess it up. So it was on me and not to blame for somebody else. So just kind of that whole cyclical hamster wheel, I guess, just turning round and around led me to that really low rock bottom where I ended up
Yeah.
being at that point in time.
Yeah. And Kyla, so like for somebody who's never been, in a recovery center, could you kind of explain to me and some of our listeners out there what that kind of looks like, your day in and day out while you're in a recovery center?
Sure. So every recovery center operates a little bit differently. I happened to go to Hazelton Betty Ford in Center City, which was wonderful. They have several locations across the United States. And I guess I had known people who had gone to different treatment centers, whether they were past clients of mine or friends, family members. And I had a lot of preconceived notions in my mind of things that I was not going to like. I wasn't going to follow those rules. I wanted to have my cell phone, things that some treatment facilities don't allow. But tried to go into it with an open mind, and I really liked that that facility had a great balance of, yes, of course, there's rules. While we're in what we call the bubble in treatment, you're in the bubble, you're not having those outside stressors. And real life, I guess, once you get out of the bubble. So really kind of having that mix of structure, rules, but also being able to work through things in group therapies, individual therapy, a lot of educational seminars and things like that. And so that was really good. And I was fortunate enough to be, when I was at Hazelton, the pod that I lived in while I was there was a professionals group track. So it was men and women in the same unit. All the other
Yeah.
units were either just men or just females. And so we were able to, I feel like, learn a lot from each other. And we had
Oh
everything
yeah.
from um, paralegals, lawyers, nurses, people who had been in the medical field, social workers. So really able to glean a lot of information from each other and just kind of be at that same point in our recovery and have a lot of like-minded thoughts and experiences was really huge for me. I felt like I got a lot out of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, otherwise just kind of incorporating that individual therapy, a lot of educational setting things, things that we could apply while we were there, things that we could apply once we leave into the real world again. Um, Motivational speakers, alumni would come back and speak, share their stories of Hazleton and where they're at with their recovery. So overall, just a really well-rounded, great experience for me.
Yeah. Now, because I'm assuming obviously everybody's different. Like when you came out of Betty Ford, like how was your feelings? Like, were you kind of nervous and scared because you were in a very controlled environment, an environment that was heavily set on your recovery, committing to your recovery, helping you heal, um, having you take steps to strengthen yourself. How did you feel like transitioning from Betty Ford out into the real world where triggers are now there, accessibility is now there? Like, tell me your thoughts and feelings like as you were getting out of recovery. Was there any sense of like maybe fear, like, am I strong enough to do this? Am I capable enough to do this? Or did you come out like confident and strong? Like how were you feeling during that transitional time?
So I think I was feeling pretty confident, but I didn't want to feel overly confident, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I did actually after my 32 days between medical detox and residential treatment, I did decide to go to a step down program that was within
Mm.
Hazen. So they have different levels. One's called like a PHP or partial hospitalization, and then there's intensive outpatient or IOP. And I was able to slide into an IOP group that was at a different campus. Um, and thankfully, it just worked out for me. My younger sister lived 5 minutes away from this outpatient center because, again, location travel barriers are such a huge thing for people in accessing treatment. So I was able to go live with my sister and her family and attend, I think it was 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. And then I get down on Thursdays at noon, and then I drive the 5 hours home until Sunday afternoon, and then I drive back. And I did that for 4 weeks. So that was a good, like, kind of testing the waters of, I've got this drive, driving by liquor stores. I'm not going to stop. I'm coming home to my family, spending time with them. So I feel like that, as much as I didn't want to go to outpatient because I just wanted to get home, I wanted to be with my
Yeah.
family. I'd been gone over a month. It was a good segue for me and something that I would encourage people if they have the opportunity to do some kind of segue step down treatment. Um, again, like things that I was worried about more so me being a social person and what kind of social situations can I either put myself in or choose to not put myself in and still be satisfied with my social life, I guess. And
Yeah.
just, worrying about how are my friends, family going to react to me coming back? Are they going to tiptoe around me? Are they going to expect the old me to come back? Are they just going to be like, oh, she's back. She's going to fail again?
Yeah.
So just a lot of that negative self-talk, trying to get myself out of that was probably one of my bigger feats, I guess, to overcome was that I'm doing this for me and what do I need to do to prioritize my recovery?
Yeah. Now you mentioned a great step on how you can can continue to commit to your recovery. What are some other ways that you've been able to maintain and commit to recovery and prevent your relapses or even old habits from resurfacing?
Sure. So maintaining commitment, I guess, I would say staying connected with my peers in recovery. I really enjoy being involved in that. I know it's not something for everyone, but I really enjoy that. And I have a great sponsor as well that we try to meet weekly on Zoom. She lives a little bit away from me, so we're not able to do as much in person, but working through the big book, getting to those meetings has been really huge. And then just remembering kind of that we stay sober for ourselves, our loved ones, and those who are unable to recover or possibly lost their lives due to addiction has been huge. Just in the whole part of carrying the message of sobriety and that we as addicts can recover. It's really pivotal to my recovery process as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Being connected to that community is really important because, they become our new support. They become, our family, and it's so important to associate and be there like as they're there for us, we can be there for them too. And it's a really important part of, this new life of embracing and staying sober. So, Kyla, tell me if at all, in what ways has your perspective changed on life since, you've embraced recovery?
Yeah, so I think that I have just been, as far as perspectives on life, learning to use the tools that I knew and never used and to build on those
Amen.
tools. So practicing what I know, what I knew before, what I learned along the way, building my toolbox, and just having a brighter outlook on life. I remember I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was a therapist or my sponsor. In my active using, I I had actually thought this at one time that my favorite part of the day was going to bed and my least favorite part was waking up. And like what a terrible way to live your life. Like what an awful way to live your life. Like I
Sure.
didn't find things to look forward to. I wasn't finding joy in things. So
Wow.
just really that perspective on life has changed. Like, yes, I still love sleep. I love sleep,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
enjoying the little things throughout the day or being able to just be present at different times. I look at all of that just in the short 8 months, almost 9 months that I've been sober, how many things I've been able to be fully present at or not had to bail out on because my anxiety was too high, my withdrawals were too bad. I was already drunk and couldn't go. Different things like that, and how many things that I could have potentially missed. And I was able to do it sober and present and just be able to fully enjoy the experience.
Yeah. Yeah. No, amen to that. That's, I can totally relate to that. Because obviously when you're constantly numbing yourself, you put on some different glasses, don't you? The way that you see and perceive the world. Since my recovery, I mean, I can't tell you how many times that I have been driving or have just stepped outside just to walk the dog and have been able to see a sunset or a sunrise or just be able to just look at a picturesque, painting of the background of some mountains and just be able to be in that present moment and just be like, oh my God, like how beautiful is this moment? Like, how beautiful is this that I'm able to sit here in this moment to breathe this fresh air and just take in the beauty that God has in this world? As being an addict, I never ever would take that time or even care to take that time to be able to be present and just witness the beauty that God has around us.
Yes, I completely agree with that. And just being able to find that joy in life again.
Yeah.
And gratitude. Gratitude is huge.
Mm.
Being able to find just the little things in life to be grateful for and also a whole new outlook on gratitude as far as I heard somebody say one time that they're a grateful alcoholic, and I thought that was just
Yeah.
crazy because who
Yeah.
would ever be grateful? Who would be grateful to put in such a horrible situation to have lived their life? But I get it
Yes.
now. Like I am grateful that I'm able to be a good mom. Without having been an alcoholic, I wouldn't have seen the other side. I'm grateful. You know, the list could go on and on. And
Right.
I guess I can identify now as a grateful alcoholic. I don't close the doors on what happened in the past, but
Yeah.
embracing what's come in the future and knowing that's what shaped me to where I am now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember being in the AA meeting and this old timer gets up and and I was way fresh in my recovery. And I sat there and I listened to this guy tell me that he's a grateful recovering alcoholic. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, that is by far the dumbest thing I've heard today. By
Yep.
far the dumbest thing I have heard today listening to this guy, say that. But, as you get further in your recovery, you realize that it took those trials, it took those lessons, it took that hardship to be able to see now from a different perspective, from a different point of view to be able to have that understanding and that appreciation now of being able to be present where before we didn't have that and we get to look through life and like I said, those lenses, we look at life differently now. We're more appreciative, we have more gratitude, we're able to enjoy life more differently now than we had before.
Yes. Yep.
Let's talk to the family a little bit, Kyla. How can family and friends best support someone in their recovery?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit on that. I want to say that this is just my perspective on it. I think everybody kind of just walks their own journey and not everybody has a strong support system like I'm very grateful to have, but for me, I think it's okay. I want you to ask curious questions not in a judgmental or presumptuous way, but asking questions like,
Okay.
what was it like when you were using?
Mm.
How can I best support you? What are some warning signs that I can watch for? What do you not want me to say to you? What's helpful, what's not? I think that's really huge, just being able to have that open and honest conversation. Of course, when the timing is right. This might be weeks, months down the road. Not something I think that can have a time frame put on it, but
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then I think I'll follow up with you on that because, family, friends, this loved one, you know their patterns. You love them, you watch them, you see their days in, their days out, right? So, I think one thing that you should always be conscious of if there's any change of their daily habits, right? Like if you notice like any change in their daily habits, like if they're getting up at a certain time and now they're like sleeping in later, or things that they've committed themselves to. If these things start slipping, um, you know, I think the most important thing that you can do is don't go in it with a judgmental attitude that just because you know these these schedules change that this loved one of yours, this friend of yours has relapsed. By any means you do not want to approach it in that manner, but as somebody who loves this person, I think it is your responsibility to in a loving way just say, hey, I've noticed, you were getting up every day at 7 o'clock, and now you're getting up at 10. It is, what's going on? Is everything okay? Is your schedule changed? What are you doing differently? And your approach is so important at this that it's not by any means accusatory in any way. All you're doing is you're bringing to light is that I've noticed, and you want to approach it in a very loving way. Because you don't know what this individual's going through. They could be going through a breakup. They could be going through a tough time at work, trying to balance work and school, having issues with children or whatever the case may be. As an addict, we used to hit this easy button all the time. And so sometimes when we have to face life on life's terms, there is a little kickback in how we try to overcome, our daily struggles. Sometimes it's hard, and sometimes we haven't gotten to a place where we can reach out yet. So family, friends, when you see stuff like this, just let you know this is a good opportunity to really be there for this individual. And like I said, your approach is extremely impactful. You definitely want to come at it at a very loving way, not accusatory by any means, just a very loving way. I just have noticed. Is everything okay? I just want you to know I love you. I'm here for you. And I'm always here to be there for you. I think is really important. Kyla, I just want to turn this time over to you, Kyla, and just if you wouldn't mind, if you could speak to that active addict out there who's struggling in their addiction, coming from your standpoint now, and what you have gained, what you have learned through your addictions, and where you're at right now. What kind of advice would you give to that struggling addict?
sure. So I think my number one advice, and everybody's at a different place in their journey and different circumstances, but for me, it would be don't wait. Be open and honest with yourself and with other people. Generally, people do want to help and be supportive. They just don't know how to be. So not putting up your guard and kind of letting those supportive people in, but also I think more importantly, being honest with yourself and realizing when, hey, this has got out of hand. I can't keep control of this anymore. What do I need to do to reach out for help? And just having that honest conversation with yourself. And because ultimately other people can't change your behavior, only you can. So as much as your
Sure.
parents, your significant other, your kids want you to get sober, you have to make that decision first. So
Yeah.
coming to those terms, and just knowing that second, third, fourth chances do exist. We don't always succeed and we might have little setbacks, but a good day sober is way better than, or excuse me, a bad day sober is way better than a day of using. So just reiterating that,
Yeah.
that is huge because we're all gonna have those trials, those hard days, but just remember it's way easier than going through a day using.
Amen. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Couldn't agree with you more. Kyla, you have been such a treat coming on today, being vulnerable, sharing, sharing your story of addiction, your path to addiction, your rock bottom and your recovery. It's so important for us to get our stories out there. There's so many people out there I know with your bravery, your vulnerability, coming on here, sharing your story. There's so many people out there that can relate to you, Kyla, and you have given so many strong points to helping, that person out there with addiction, or even that person right now who's struggling in their recovery, giving them hope, giving them extra tools that they now can use in their recovery. It's so important for us to get our stories out, and I'm so grateful for you for sharing your story today, Kyla.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoy being on here and sharing my story, and hopefully it inspires some people or helps some people along the way.
Oh, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. Guys, just in ending, I just want you to know, listen, no matter where you are in your journey, recovery is not just possible. It's within your reach. I stand here today as living proof. Hyla stands here today of living proof that change is achievable and that transformation is real and that a brighter, sober tomorrow awaits each and every one of us. So embrace the journey, lean on your support system, and never lose sight of the incredible strength you have within you. There's nothing special about me. There's nothing special that I did that brought me to this place of sobriety. That same will, that same strength is within each and every one of you. You have the power to rewrite your story, to reclaim your life, and to soar beyond the limitations of addiction. Believe in yourself, take that first step, and trust that the path to recovery is paved with endless possibilities. And together we can walk this path hand in hand towards a future filled with hope, healing, and a newfound freedom. Again, I just want to thank Kyla for being here. I love you guys. Please just remember, you are important. Your life is important. Your story is important. And with that, we'd just like to say this is Rock Bottoms Up. We love you. Have an amazing night.